What do you enjoy most about commercial real estate? You obviously love the fundraising part of it, but what else really?
I think, being in Dallas, this is a real estate centric town. And I spent a lot of time talking to young people who are interested in getting in the space. And what I find is Dallas is such a collegial place. And what I really enjoy is that aspect of you can go to a breakfast and there's be 10 of your competitors. But you're all going to share. And I don't see that in any other market. I don't see that when you go to New York, you think a bunch of New York brokers are going to,
No.
They're not going to lift the veil. Totally. That's what I enjoy. Is the people side of it.
Paul Smith, how we doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Buddy, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. We're going to have a good time today.
You bet.
Before we dive into your incredible journey in business and kind of commercial real estate, I always love taking a step back and kind of looking at how you grew up and those things that shaped you. So I'd love to talk about Paul Smith's upbringing. So tell me a little bit about where it all started for you, bud.
Well, I'm one of seven.
One of seven?
Yep.
Middle child?
No.
First guy?
I'm the baby boy. We have girls on top and bottom and 5 boys in the middle.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got a little sister. Great family. My parents moved here in 51 from New York. So
really?
We're like the New York Irish Catholic Mafia. Comes to Dallas.
Now, was this Manhattan or upstate or?
It was Manhattan and Rye. So my dad was from Jersey City. My mom was from Rye. They lived in the city and moved here with Texas Instruments in 51.
No kidding.
Yeah. So he was an early TI guy.
Gotcha.
So we were a TI family.
Yeah.
But it's, I went to Cistercian for high school, and
smart guy,
the hard part's getting in. My parents did help start the school, which is kind of cool.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that, Paul.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So we've been a big part of that community really my entire life.
Yeah.
So from Cistercian, I went up to Harvard, went to college up there, and that was an adjustment. The first winter up there, I said, "What have I done to myself?" It was the coldest winter in the history of Boston.
What, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was frozen, but endured, made some great friends, lifelong friends, went straight through into business school at UT, which was a lot of fun.
Well, let's go back to Harvard, though. How does one get into Harvard, number one? And did you, when you're in high school at Cistercian, what took you to that path? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, my dad went to Harvard.
Okay.
That helped. I had a couple brothers went to Harvard.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the whole fam.
Yeah. And I had a brother at Yale, sister at Smith. Wow. We have a pretty deep history at Harvard. So
that's amazing.
It was pretty cool. So yeah, it's that helped. But you gotta work hard, get good grades, and then like I said, the hard part's getting in.
We get a degree in history. Is that right?
Yeah, It was interesting. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it was not economics, and it was a little easier.
Yeah, no economics, no finance, none of that stuff.
I got all that in my MBA down at UT.
Yeah.
So I made up for lost time down at Texas.
Favorite history class while you were there at Harvard?
There's no question. There's a guy named David Brinkley who was Brinkley, the newscaster's son.
Okay.
And Alan Brinkley.
Okay.
David was the father.
Yeah.
And he was big on FDR. And
Really?
He was just an incredible teacher. He came in as a visiting professor. But I never forgot that class. It was really cool.
Yeah.
And he'd come in and he'd tell stories, and then you read and you take a test, and it was a lot of fun.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
And so did you know when you got that degree, like what you were going to do with it, or did you know I'm going to go get my MBA somewhere, or how did that come together? I'm just curious.
I was kind of torn between MBA or law school.
Okay.
So I got into SMU Law School, got into Owen School at Vanderbilt for MBA.
Wow.
One of my brothers, my brother Michael, is a year ahead of me, and he was down at Texas, and he said, "Don't go to law school. Don't go to Vandy. Come down to Austin.
We're having fun down there."
So I did. We lived together. We had a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So he had gone to Washington Lee undergrad.
Yeah.
So he just said, "You need to get down here and have a little fun." So
Right.
we worked really hard. We had a lot of fun. Enjoyed Austin. And then after MBA, I came up to Dallas, which is where all the jobs always are.
Sure.
And went to Republic Bank, which was Republic, InterFirst, or Mercantile back then. And they were really great places to learn and to meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. Went through the credit program at Republic.
Yeah.
Did a rotation in real estate, and that's where the real estate bug got me.
Okay.
And had no inkling to get involved in real estate. I hardly knew who Trammell Crow was back then.
Right.
But the best people in the bank, I thought, were in the real estate department at Republic.
Okay.
Little did we all know, 1986, the tax law changes, and we were in the soup. And saw 2 bank failures, and then NCNB, which became B of A, came to town and separated it, sort of good bank, bad bank.
Yep.
I was on the good bank side, which meant you didn't really do anything because there was really no money to lend.
Okay.
You know, NCNB, they would say, stood for no cash for nobody, which was true.
Yeah.
For a good while.
Right.
But Hugh McCall made a heck of a deal, got some great tax loss carry forwards, but there was really nothing to do.
Yeah.
And I had a call from a friend of one of my brothers, a guy named Dick Sessler.
Okay.
And Dick's in Charlotte now, but he was in Dallas. And they had formed a private equity group called FS Realty Partners.
Okay.
And the capital was Fayez Serafim out of Houston, who's a big equity manager, legendary guy. And Fayez was the capital behind the real estate firm. They had just closed a big portfolio with Paragon, with Bill Cooper's group, and they needed some help asset management wise. A lot of the assets were in Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And I had just married my wife, Ann, who's from Louisville.
Really?
So they thought that would be a pretty good fit. And,
Yeah.
And they were right. So that was a lot of fun. That's how I got into private equity.
Interesting.
On the real estate side.
Yeah.
So it was a fun ride. And there were apartments, there were office, there was a lot of retail that Paragon owned.
Yeah.
And we had pension funds that had, we put in a commingled pool together, FS Realty had back then.
Yeah.
So that was my first foray into real private equity.
Yeah.
And it was a great learning experience. I was there for 11 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
Especially in today's world where everybody bounces around all the time.
Totally.
Yeah.
So they translated into Serafim Realty Advisors, which a lot of people know.
Yeah, sure.
When they have now changed into Swift Creek. But so I was working on a lot of really great accounts. I've been blessed to work with some great clients.
Yeah.
Stanford's Endowment was an investor with us.
Wow.
And I was good friends with Larry Owen, who ran the real estate for Stanford. And they were just a great client to have.
Yeah.
A lot of other pension funds, the folks at Hughes Aircraft, which now became part of GM, they were great, very smart people, and made some good buys, and we managed all the real estate for them for the pension fund.
Mm-hmm.
So after 11 years, Stanford actually suggested to me that I also work with them, but with Invesco. So they were a client of Invesco.
Okay.
So I got to work with David Ridley, David Farmer over there, working mainly on the Stanford account there, with Scott Dennis.
Yeah,
Scott was a big part of it. So that was fun. And I was there for 5 years.
Okay.
And Invesco back in the day was a separate account shop. So they had a lot of state pension plans, a lot of endowments, and they would go out and buy real estate for them, a la carte.
Yeah.
They wanted to morph into the fund side of investing. So in 2003, we structured the first fund that Invesco ever did.
Oh, wow.
And now they're a fund shop.
Yep.
But that was a great time for me. Got to work with the attorneys, the accountants, structuring the fund, putting it together. The groups we had, we raised about $325 million, which back then was a lot.
That's big.
Had some great pension funds in there. Contra Costa County was a big seed investor. San Diego County. So a lot of California investors, which Max Swango over at Invesco had spent a lot of time in California putting those groups together. So that was pretty cool. Enjoyed that a lot.
Then you became an office guy.
Yeah. And Crescent, the folks at Crescent had kind of seen what we had done at Invesco, and they were really interested. They wanted to raise a fund, even though they were a public REIT.
Yeah.
So they've, Goff and Denny Alberts always wanted to have institutional capital in a commingled format so they could kind of control the money a little bit better.
Yeah.
And not be whipsawed by the public REIT market. So they asked me to come over, explain what we had done at Invesco. I did. And then they pulled back a board at this first meeting, and they had the outline for a series of funds that they wanted to raise. And it looked exactly like what we had done at Invesco.
Huh.
And after a number of months, they asked me to come over and help them raise a fund. So left Invesco, went to Crescent. That we started to raise a fund, but the company kind of pivoted, and the board made a decision that they wanted to sell, that they wanted to go private.
Yep.
Not be a public REIT. So I became what we euphemistically called the chief disposition officer. So we worked on selling a bunch of assets to kind of clean up around the edges.
Yep.
Ended up selling to Morgan Stanley in 2007.
Mm-hmm. That's good timing.
Horrific time to make a real estate buy, right?
Yeah.
Great time to sell.
That's right.
So that was a good event for me.
Yeah.
And we had 11 managing directors at the time at Crescent. I was one of them. 10 of them left, and I stayed.
Wow.
And Morgan Stanley asked me and Mike Lewis to really run the company for them.
Yeah.
So there were 300 employees, 30 million square feet of office. We were the biggest landlord in Houston, Dallas, and Denver. That was something.
That is something.
With a new bucket of capital that really didn't have.
Was that about the same time you were building the Ritz and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got to oversee the finishing out of that product. The hotel opened in August 2007.
Okay.
And really not a good time to be opening. We had the phase 2 condominiums coming up.
Yeah.
Including townhomes that are there. They're built.
Yep.
But there was great consternation over whether the phase 2 units would sell. And they were pretty sure the townhome units wouldn't sell for what the pro forma numbers were.
Right.
So we examined not building the townhomes, which we really had to do. So there were 4 beautiful townhomes that were totally vacant for 5 years. Good. But we had to build them because otherwise you would have violated the condominium plan.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a rough time.
What were those condos priced at, by the way?
I had to
or
think
townhomes.
Back. The townhomes were like $2 million a piece.
Yeah.
And again, back then that's a lot of money. So
yeah.
That was a pretty wild ride.
Yeah.
We executed pretty well as a team for Morgan Stanley. We sold whatever we could sell to pay back debt because they had taken on a lot of debt through Barclays. That was quite an experience.
Yeah.
Trying to sell assets in a tough time, paying off debt, and continuing to do more of it. We got to 2009, and then Morgan Stanley said, we're done. We're exiting this investment. And Barclays foreclosed on all the assets. So I got to sign over deeds on 30 office buildings. That's humbling.
Wow.
Yeah. But really good people. And, every one of those organizations I was a part of, Invesco, incredible folks. The Crescent team was incredible. The Morgan Stanley guys were great, and I got to interact with them a lot in New York, learned a lot about New York, how New York behaves versus how Texas behaves.
A little different, isn't it?
Just a little bit different.
Yeah.
And then 2010, Crescent, the Barclays folks bought back John Goff. And I left, Mike Lewis left, Mike went over to Velocis immediately. I went to go work for a friend of mine, John Shagru, who had just taken on a big portfolio, Middle Eastern capital. It's a $3 billion portfolio, and he needed help.
Wow.
And we went to breakfast at Flying Fish, and he said, "Can you help me with this?" And I said, "I think so." So we worked on that for a couple of years. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of industrial assets in that portfolio, which was really my initial introduction to the industrial side of things.
Yeah.
And that investor, who was the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, ended up buying two portfolios, one from USAA and one from Teachers. The crossover on those portfolios ended up with 7 million square feet in Memphis, Tennessee, in industrial, which in 2010 to 2012 was not a great place to be.
No.
So we were working on that as much as we could.
Yeah.
And then that assignment got reset to New York. So I went over to Velocis in 2012.
You knew all those guys.
I knew all those guys: Mike Lewis, Fred Ham, Jim Yoder.
Yeah.
They just hired David Seifert. So the five of us are the five partners there now. I've been there since 2012.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride.
Tell me about the I mean, I would say that Velocis is kind of your first like really entrepreneurial opportunity, right?
Yeah,
I mean, before then, kind of working for big institutions, publicly traded REITs, private equity firms, all those things. And now, was there any hesitation of going over to Velocis, or were you kind of like, you know what, now's the time to really do something like this?
Yeah, I would say there was some hesitation, not on their part, on my part.
Yeah,
just trying to figure out if that was the right thing to do. You got to really put your own skin in the game.
Sure.
Which will keep you highly motivated. They had, my other partners, they had just thrown in 100% and said, "We want to own this.
Yep.
We're going to have a skin in the game with the investors." They raised a good fund, in 2010. So really it's like, where do you want to take it from there? And we discussed raising the second fund because the first fund had gone very well. And it felt like really not only the right time to do it, but with the right people.
Yeah.
So, once again, I had the opportunity to work with great people, and that's enough to make the decision for me.
Yeah. And now you're the guy over all the industrial.
Yeah.
And you took off your Italian loafers from the office world, and now you got some cowboy boots on. I mean, tell me about the transition kind of or tell me the differences in the office and industrial world and what you like about either.
Yeah, what I like is not having to write big TI checks. Is
not as capital intensive, is it?
No. As my partner Mike Lewis likes to say, TI is the gift that keeps on giving. And boy, that world exploded on the office side, and the tenant demands and office portfolios. Just you have to pay $50 to $100 a foot in TI, and you go, and how am I going to get that money back?
Yeah,
you don't have to do as much of that in industrial, right. Although that's kind of the new arms race. Is these tenants throwing their weight around and saying, it used to be a couple bucks a foot or $5 a foot. Yeah. Now that's $10 to $20 a foot.
That's right.
And you're like, where can they spend all that money in a warehouse?
Right.
Still kind of baffles me. But the construction side, you would think is simpler. All we're doing is building the same box over and over again. But it's been gratifying to work with development partner KBC.
Yeah.
We've done 14 out of our 15 deals with KBC. We've done one deal with Bob Rice at Ironwood.
Yeah.
Incredible people, really good at what they do, working with the contractors. We are we're probably the most active general partner in the construction business you could hope for. So we're really trying to represent the investors actively. And when we're developing these warehouse buildings, we want to make darn sure we're doing it right.
Sure.
And I think to have that real skin in the game attitude, that's different. An office deal is kind of an animal that's way bigger than you.
Yes.
But the warehouse side of things is a little more digestible. And I think you can really make your presence felt individually.
Yeah.
But it's been fun. Watching them lease up, way different than an office building.
Yep.
But I got some great leasing stories on the office side. But
it's like you timed it perfectly too, Paul. I mean,
it was.
You were in the office world when it was glorious.
Yeah, it was pretty good. There were some good runs. There's some ups and downs.
But
you learn from the hard times.
Yep.
And right around the corner from your office here is the Oxy Tower. That was the first office deal I worked on. Carl Summers was the developer.
Huh.
That thing was in the ditch as soon as it came out of the ground.
Wow.
So working with my old buddy Greg Hilton back in the day, Greg is now in San Francisco, but we would do anything we could to get a warm body tenant for that building. And, that's tough.
Yeah.
When you're looking at 500,000 square feet, that's, and your interest carry is about to run out, and what are you going to do?
Right.
So happy to have that behind me, but you draw a lot from that experience, and you really understand. It helps you think how to make a deal, how to get a deal from A to Z.
Yeah.
And I use that every day on the industrial side now.
Yeah.
But it's really gratifying. You might have a 150,000 square foot warehouse, and you can fill that up with one tenant, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I think that's been really fun to experience along the way.
Yeah, and those industrial tenants aren't so into the color of the counters in the break room,
right,
and the trim on the doors and all those other things. It's a little easier.
Yeah.
It's really about the functionality of the building first.
Totally. Location.
Yeah, location.
And I think some of the things we've learned along the way doing 15 of these deals, highway exposure generally is the best.
Yep.
But we have one of our favorite stories is our deal in Temple. And we built 850,000 square feet of warehouses in Temple, Texas.
Yeah.
Because really, and KBC had the vision, they were down there looking for a client for a site. They ended up putting 130 acres under contract. And what we really learned was that Temple, there's deep credit in the Temple community. A lot of corporate tenants, Walmart,
McLean,
HEB, McLean, Reynolds. And they had a need for spec industrial space. They had their own, semi warehouses or manufacturing facilities,
right?
But they needed more space, and the EDC told that to KBC. We provided the capital. We built 2 beautiful warehouses, and along the way, even before we started, we were able to sell 50 acres of our site to a tenant, Niagara Bottling. And we recovered our entire basis in the original land purchase.
Gotta love deals like that.
That's just
those feel really good.
We can't stop talking about that deal.
It's interesting. Sometimes you got to be the pioneer, and you benefited from it. You know, the old adage, the first one in. Kind of worked there.
Yeah,
and it's all along that incredible 35 corridor. Between Austin and Dallas. It made a lot of sense.
Yeah, the amount of jobs that are going to be in that Texas Triangle and the ability to access population in the Southwest U.S. is pretty unique. So I don't think it's going to stop. I think there's a lot of room to grow in terms of new industrial space in the Triangle. But, a lot of people, they spend a lot of time talking about the border cities, Laredo and El Paso.
Yeah.
Maybe too much so. There might be too much activity there.
I think you're too late to the game if you're trying to go down there now.
Yeah. We like Houston right now. Just the dynamics. It didn't get as overbuilt as Dallas or Austin. and the absorption has been very steady, particularly in around the Bay Area with the ship channel.
Yep.
That's been great. So I think Houston, Savannah, some of these other shipping markets, that's been really a lot of fun. Really, since the development, the expansion of the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
So next go around where we want to go on the industrial side through Velocis is we'll do our next fund.
Yeah.
So our first fund was about $260 million. Our next fund will be a little bit bigger, around $300 million. And we're going to be out in the market starting right now with that fund.
That's exciting.
Yeah. It's probably the most fun I have is going out and talking to investors about, putting their money to work and generating good returns for them.
Yeah.
Most of the time that works.
Is that your favorite part of the business?
I think so.
Yeah.
When we did that in Invesco, you're just interacting with people.
Sure.
And that's always more fun. And you have to be passionate about what you're doing.
Yep.
You've got to be telling a good story. So you have to do your homework and to communicate that, to convey it, and then ultimately to succeed in getting someone to invest. It's a fun journey.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when you perform, right?
Totally. That makes it a lot better.
So where, you got the new fund coming. Where do you see the opportunity? Are you going to stay in the Sun Belt? Are there any particular areas you want to target?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we'll do, our first fund was targeted just exclusively to Texas.
Okay.
So we'll do more of that. I think there's plenty of room in this great state. We will tag team off of where KBC has offices outside of Texas.
Okay.
So that's Nashville, it's Chicago, and also Columbus, Ohio. Now they've expanded there. Atlanta, good growth markets.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll do much in the Northeast U.S. There's plenty of competitors up there that you don't really want to duke it out with. Don't really see us going to California just because entitlement issues out there takes so long.
You don't want to wait 10 years to build your warehouse?
We think we'll be, most of our existing investments in Fund 1 have been about a 3-year turn. So you identify it, you close on the land, you build the warehouse, you lease it up, and you sell it.
Yeah.
So, and then you return the capital to the investors and do it again.
Yep.
So I think we want to be in markets where we can continue with that.
Yep.
So it's not a buy and hold strategy at all.
Yeah.
I laugh a lot of the time. The investors, they're happy to give you a subscription document and commit their funds, but as soon as those funds get drawn out, they want it back.
Oh yeah.
Right. So that's always the mystery, is like, I'll get it back to you soon, but I got to lease first.
That's right. That's right. What do you enjoy most about commercial real estate? You obviously love the fundraising part of it, but what else really? Something
I think, being in Dallas, this is a real estate centric town, and I spent a lot of time talking to young people who are interested in getting in the space.
Yeah.
And what I find is Dallas is such a collegial place. And what I really enjoy is that aspect of, you can go to a breakfast and there's be 10 of your competitors.
Yeah.
But you're all going to share.
Right.
And I don't see that in any other market. I don't see that when you go to New York. You think a bunch of New York brokers are going to,
no,
they're not going to lift the veil. Totally. That's what I enjoy.
Yeah.
Is the people side of it. And it's always been that way here. I've been blessed and lucky in my career, in the places I've gone to. The people have been incredible, and they're smart, largely successful in what we've been doing along the way. But interacting with people and being able to generate good returns, return capital for them, to succeed on behalf of somebody else, that's really gratifying.
For sure. Who do you, when you look back at your career, who were some of the people that were some of the biggest influencers on you? Like when you go back, when you look at, you know, like who really helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah. Oh God, I can think of so many of them. Started with Jack Killo on an airplane ride where he was at Republic Bank and he said, "Don't go to InterFirst, come over to Republic." That made a difference.
Yeah.
And set me on the journey. First boss was Lynn Caldwell. Lynn was incredible. And in 1985, to be working for a smart woman right out of the gate, that was pretty unique.
Yes.
And she helped me along the way numbers of times and still does today. She's a great relationship to draw on. Denny Alberts. Denny hired me at Crescent. Denny was the next banker and just an incredibly smart, nice guy. And boy, when he knew what the path was, he could execute.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot from him there. My partners at Velocis are incredible people.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody work harder than my partners. And that's, it motivates me. It influences me every day.
Yeah. That's incredible and great to share. When you, I want to go back to a little bit. Because, boy, we sped through your childhood a little bit. I want to know about your dad, because your dad came to Texas with TI, and that obviously put you on a whole new path in life. What was he like, an engineer? Or like, tell me your dad's background with TI and how that all came together.
He was an attorney.
He was an attorney.
Yeah. So he was doing a lot of legal work for what was then called Geophysical Services Institute. So GSI was the predecessor to Texas Instruments.
Okay.
And they hired him off the streets of New York and said, "You need to come to Dallas and work here with us."
Yeah.
So he's always an attorney, always had an attorney mind, but he was also a very good finance guy. And he became, along the way, the treasurer for TI.
Oh, wow.
And he used to regale us with stories of having to lock bankers in a room just to, convince them that they needed to make a loan for this new manufacturing facility they wanted to do on Central Expressway.
Right.
So he was very strong-minded, very willful.
Yeah.
He raised 7 kids. He and my mom, they really were incredible people.
Yeah.
My mom could get your life story out of you.
Yeah.
That was her gift.
Yeah.
She had a lot of admirers. They were great and smart people. My mom went to Smith. My dad went to Harvard.
Wow.
Just a really incredible experience to grow up as, one of 7 in that family.
Was he chasing patent folks back in those days?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Among other things.
I mean, golly, that was just the height of the computing world.
Well, we had as kids growing up in the TI world, we had the first calculators.
Yeah.
So we would show up at Cistercian with the new whatever version it was.
Yeah.
And the math teacher would look at us with envy. It was.
I mean, how cool is that?
It was pretty cool. He spent a number of years over in Japan where they set up a chip manufacturing plant in Fukushima.
Wow.
And we didn't see him for a couple of Christmases. He was over there a lot.
Wow.
So great work ethic. And, my mom raised the family when he wasn't there.
Sure.
I was blessed to be part of it. Am blessed to be part of that family.
Any brothers or sisters in the commercial real estate world, or?
No.
Okay. You're the only one.
Yeah. We've had attorneys. We've had, finance guys.
Yeah.
Everybody's sort of gravitated to the numbers for sure.
Yeah.
My little sister was in the bond business with Merrill Lynch before she became a full-time mom.
Yeah.
But I'm the lone real estate wolf.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Let's transition from now to what I call the C-suite closers, which are just quick hitting questions, Paul, to just let the audience get to know you a little bit.
Yep.
Okay. So the first one will be an interesting one because the question is something that most people don't know about you. So do you have a hidden talent or something that most folks don't know about Paul Smith?
Oh, goodness. I have to think about that. Can I come back to that one?
You can come back to that one. Most impactful book?
No question. Lonesome Dove.
Really?
Yeah.
You a big Old West guy? Western guy?
I like it all. I like McMurtry.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty passionate about Lonesome Dove, and I tell other people about it, including some of these young guys that work with us.
Yeah.
And they go, "What's that?" And I said,
dude.
"You've never read Lonesome Dove." And they don't even know what it is. So my wife gets tired of me talking about it, but it's
well, you can see by my office.
Yeah,
I kind of like
I
like the old West for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. We talked a little bit about bands earlier. What are the top 3 bands on your playlist?
We just did this. We had Spotify will do your top songs of 2004. Sure. Mount Joy shows up.
Okay.
Camp.
Okay.
And a lot of Jerry Jeff Walker.
God, I love Jerry Jeff.
little diverse.
Yeah.
And it'll go all the way into Van Morrison. I'm kind of a classic rock guy.
Yeah.
But one of my kids, my daughter Hannah, she likes to keep me current. So she'll introduce me to some new stuff, and that's fun.
I tell you what, that Jerry Jeff live at Green Hall got a lot of play by me in college. That's a great one.
Yeah, I go back to it all the time. It's a great record.
Yeah. You got the old pickup truck song. You know,
I was heavily influenced by Jerry Jeff and Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah, that's so
in my
great.
youth. Yeah,
they're so wonderful. If you could have coffee with one historical or famous figure, who would you choose?
Einstein would be on the top of the list. Jesus Christ would probably be the top.
For sure.
I think everybody would probably say that.
I mean, being a history major, there's got to be one in there that,
Yeah. I really would like to sit down with Reagan. And I just think I'm a big Reagan fan.
Yeah.
Some of the things he did, he was tough. And I don't think people appreciated that much about him, but he made some really hard decisions and changed the course of the country, I think, in a good way.
Changed the course of the country and the world.
Totally.
So God, he was such a great communicator. I mean, his voice was just so good. I mean, it's just like one of those voices you could just listen to.
And he had big ideas.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of Peggy Noonan in the Wall Street Journal, and Peggy used to write speeches for Reagan. And so it's I'd love to spend some time with him.
Since I'm going to include this one in here, especially with your history background, if you could witness any historical event, what would it be?
The resurrection of Jesus.
It's a big one.
I think probably something more minor compared to that. The fall of the Berlin Wall. Is pretty amazing.
It goes back to Reagan right there.
It really does. Reagan and Gorbachev. Those are big ones. I think maybe signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
To be in that room would be incredible.
Can you imagine? Yeah. That's super cool. If you could live anywhere in the world besides lovely Dallas-Fort Worth, where would it be and why?
I'd say in the U.S., Boston. I
love the Northeast up there.
I miss Boston.
What do you miss about it?
I would call it character. It's just they have older buildings, history.
Yes.
It's a incredibly walkable city. And I like that a lot. My wife and I are big fans of Paris because it's walkable.
Right.
And you have the same sort of sense of historical structures.
Yeah. We can go down to Old Parkland, kind of feel a little the same.
just exactly the same.
It's about as close as we get here.
Yeah. I used to say Jacksonville and Austin back when I was thinking about if it's not Dallas, where would I be?
Yeah.
I've got a good friend in Jacksonville. I just think that's a pretty cool city.
Yeah.
I've always loved Austin.
Yeah, sure.
It's getting a little crowded now.
Yeah.
But I don't.
You don't have any tattoos or nose piercings, Paul. I don't think
that you know of.
I don't think you could fit into Austin any longer.
But I think I'd say Paris outside of the U.S.
Okay.
It's just it's an incredible place, and I can't go there enough.
Yeah, that's awesome. Favorite restaurant in Dallas?
Probably Parigi.
Great little spot.
Yeah.
Hadn't heard that one in a while.
Yeah, we're big fans of that, and Le Bilboquet as well.
Phenomenal.
And then maybe Albernaise.
Sure.
which is incredibly consistent.
Yes.
I was lucky to be a part of the origination of Fearings back in the Crescent days.
Yeah.
So we're friends with Dean, and I just think what he does.
He lives
in that
one
kitchen,
street over from me. I need to get to know him.
Oh yeah, Dean's a character.
I've heard that.
He's from Kentucky also. So we'll go in about once a year with my kids around Christmas, and he always comes up and talks to my wife about Louisville and just Kentucky stuff, and it's a lot of fun.
That's great. Lastly, I'm all about impacting others. Are there any like charities or things that you give back to that you'd like to talk about on the show?
Well, I'm passionate about Cistercian. I think what has been going on in the school is incredible. Scholastically, it's probably the top in Dallas, but I think spiritually, what they do in the monastery, is really incredible. And
how many kids are going to Cistercian these days?
Well, there's about 50 in every class. It goes 5 through 12.
Okay.
But the monastery is bustling. And back in my day, they were all Hungarian priests who had fled Hungary after the Soviet occupation. They moved to Marquette, and then they migrated down to Dallas. And my parents were part of that.
Wow.
But they are now, there's only a few Hungarians left, but they have recreated the roster with a full set of American priests.
Huh.
And it's a special place. Yeah. And the church there, the chapel as part of the monastery is unique. It's great architecture. But the people are just incredibly spiritual and wonderful guys. Yeah. So, my money will go there, go to St. Michael's also, where my kids went, and we go to church. Yeah. But those are the two primary ones. Yeah.
Speaking of Catholicism, how you feel about the new Pope? I mean, we got the first American.
I'm excited. Yeah, I was watching earnestly that day. Yeah. I was surprised. I didn't think I'd ever live to see the day where there's going to be an American Pope.
Right.
So I'm hopeful for him. Yeah. I think he'll have some good ideas. I think he'll be good for the church. Yeah. I really do. Yeah. So I'm sort of proud of the other Cardinals for having the courage to elect an American Pope. I'm sure that wasn't an easy thing to do. No,
I'm sure it wasn't. I saw this weekend, I was just scrolling, Instagram, and I guess there's a photo of him in a White Sox jersey at a White Sox game. I was like, that's pretty cool to see him, down to earth like that. And then now here he is, the most popular figure in the whole Catholic Church.
And to have gone through St. Peter's a number of times, I've had the fortunate ability to do that. Yeah. And that is, what an incredible spot in the world, just to have its own Vatican City with St. Peter's. Right. And to go underneath and see the original church that they uncovered. They didn't even know it was there. Yeah. So there's just some great history there.
That's awesome. Well, Paul, thanks we could go on and on and on today, but I appreciate you coming and spend some time with me, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, thank you. I'll buy you a beer next time. It's on me.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, Conrad.